Okay, the next piece we're going to work on is the, I'm going to call it the floating plate. It's going to be made out of a piece of 3/4 by 1.5 inch by 4-inch long flat bar. This will have, and one other comment first off on the last piece we made, I had to actually go back and put a little notch here to get around part of the motor mount up there. But that's, of course, going to be dependent on your mill and the way it's the amount of space you have in there. But what this is going to work on, what the next piece is going to be, this mounting plate is going to be, of course, rigid to the gearbox plate. This, however, is going to float on a spring. We'll call this the floating plate, the floating mount now, and we need 3 holes in that. This first one will be a 1/2 inch hole. It will ride on the post back here at the back of our mounting plate. Now it's going to only be just to keep our floating plate from doing that. There won't be a spring on this post. There will be a spring up here. But this will be a 1/2 inch. This will be the hole that the impact wrench actually goes through. And there'll be set screws in the side of this, grub screws to hold it in place. And then up front up here is going to be a 3/4 inch hole, and that will get a Delrin bushing that we'll make over on the lathe when we get this part finished. So let me get this piece in the mill. I have our piece mounted in the vise now, and I have located the center on the X and on the Y. I found the edge back here. We're going to work everything off this back edge just like we worked everything on the mounting plate from the back edge. So our first hole is 450 thousandths from the end. And while I got that tool in, I'm going to go ahead and step off each one. The next one is 1.4 inches. And then the final one is 3.2 inches. I had to take a phone call, so while I had the camera stopped, I went ahead and put the 1/2 inch drill bit in. We're going to bore them all, or drill them all to a 1/2 inch, and then we'll put the boring bar in to finish them up. Okay, I can actually drill out a little more of these. The back hole this hole is finished now. Let's go back to the 1.4 mark. And this is going to be 1.162, so we'll go ahead and run a 1 inch drill bit in there. Get a whole lot easier to do it this way. Take out some of this, rough it out. Before we get in with the boring head. And we'll use a 5/8 bit for this one that's going to be 3/4. That's the only other bit I have in between. And that was at 3.2. Okay, I'm going to put the boring head in there now and get it set up to do our final cuts on the floating mount. I have the boring head in now, and I've got it set up to take just a small cut and then we'll get a measurement. This will have a Delrin bushing turned to fit whatever this winds up at, but we want it very close to 3/4 of an inch. I don't think I'll be able to measure that in there. Let's see. Yeah, maybe. At least for preliminary measurement. 690, so I need 85 more thousandths.
40.
Now I'm going to get this out here. Of course, I've got my DRO set on 0 there, so I can easily come back to it. But get it out here where I can measure good. All right, I went about 8 thousandths over. I get mixed up a lot of times with this. On my lathe, the graduations on there is off the diameter, but on this boring head, it's off the radius. So I like to mess this piece up, but I can, as I say, the Delrin bushing 758. The Delrin bushing is going to be machined to match that. Had to answer the phone again. I'm back over here to our middle hole. Going to run that out just enough to get a skim pass on that, and then we'll take a measurement. Let me put that on an even graduation. All right, this one I don't want to mess up. We need 1.165, 1.046. All right, I need 119 thousandths. Off of the diameter, so 119 divided by 2 will be 60 thousandths off the radius. There's 10, 20, 30, 40, and we'll take another measurement. All right, that's close enough. I'm going to bring it out to the side where I can get a much better measurement on it. .133, 1.162 minus 1.133 equals 29 thousandths divided by 2 on the dial. I need 14.5 thousandths. About Alright, so there's 10. That's about as close as I can see with this dial, and then we'll actually test fit the impact wrench in. The impact wrench, and if that doesn't look like what you're seeing in the catalogs or on the web page, there was a plastic boot over this end. Taking the boot off, and this is a casting right here, so it's hard to get a definitive diameter on that. I'd just rather not overshoot it though. I'd rather kind of wedge fit in there. Alright, it should go in there now. As I say, it's going to have grub screws on each side to be sure it stays in place. And it needs just a little more. It's all dependent on where you measurement on there, where you measure it. All right, there we go. I'm happy with that. Need a little cleanup now, deburring. But there's our, we'll call this the floating mount. Next piece we'll work on is the Delrin bushing. The floating rod that we want our, or the rod that we want our floating mount to ride upon, needs to be something good and slick. I've got some stainless steel, but it's 3/4, and I'm looking something around approximately a 1/2 inch. This is a piece of chrome plated rod that I had that should be plenty slick with a chrome plating on it, and it's 470 thousandths. Which a 31/64 drill bit, 31 divided by 64, 484 thousandths, so that's going to give about 15 thousandths clearance on it, which I think should be fine. We don't want a snug fit. We don't want a sloppy fit. We just want something that this will slide up and down on easily as we engage and disengage our drawbar. Alright, I'm going to, our bushing, or our Delrin bushing, total length is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to drill about 3 inches into it. There's 2.5. We'll go just a little more. At 2.8. Now we'll back the tailstock out of the way. I'm probably going to bump the camera here moving some cords. Alright. We'll back the tailstock up enough to see for certain if our rod is going to slide through there like we want it to. I think that will be an excellent fit there. Okay. So, looking at my drawing, we want from, let me do one thing at a time, Lee. Get my tool in. I hadn't even turned my DRO on yet. All right, so we want 1 inch, no, we want 3/4 of an inch from the end. Actually turn down 3/4 of an inch. So I'll bring this in to 750. Set my carriage stop. $7.52. All right. This should be about 1 inch stock that I'm starting with, but we're gonna get a pass on there and then get a good measurement. And remember, this is the one that we'll want to turn to actually match the float, the hole in the floating mount that we overshot by a few thousandths. 75, 85, 90, 998. Zero out the X. We'll take some more and get a good measurement. $7.79 is what we're actually looking on there. So I did actually overshoot that one pretty good. $7.79. I had to answer that phone another time. We need 118 more thousandths off of there, off of that diameter. So I'm going to start out, I'm going to get the 100 thousandths on that, and then we'll start creeping up, because I actually want this a tight fit. All right, now we're actually at 118,000. We'll probably should trust my equipment a little more than I do, but I'm still learning. And that is a good press fit right there. I'm happy with that. So I should have trusted my equipment to begin with. 118 thousandths is what it come up to on the DRO. Now we're going to pull this out just enough to part it off. Bump the blade right up to it, zero out the Z-axis. Now we want 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to have to move my carriage stop. All right, we want 3/4 of an inch for the for this bushing, an inch for the spacer, and then 3/4 of an inch more. So that's going to be 2 1/4. And I'm going to have to pull it out a little further. 2 1/2. Alright, so re-zero out the Z. And we want 3/4 and 3/4, it's 1.5 inches and 1 inch in the middle, 2.5 inches. There's 2.5, and then 100 thousandths for the thickness of the parting blade. So that would be 2.6. And we can put our carriage stop back in place. And just hope we drilled enough to go all the way through, which we did. I'm going to get this cleaned up. Well, we can clean right here. All right, this end we want to turn down to 625. And we want to do it again 3/4 from the end. So zero out the Z. May have to move my, I think I'm going to have to move my carriage stop. Yep. Really rather not stick the work out any further than that. All right, we're set there. Again, get a starting pass. All right, I'm going to measure this, get it down to the 625 thousandths that we're looking for, and go back over on the bench and determine the length for our rod that this is going to slide over, and we'll proceed from there.